I had prepared Rugov's favorite paneer butter masala, jeera rice, and warm rotis with a touch of ghee. The kitchen still smelled of cumin and coriander, rich with the scent of 1,000 similar evenings. I moved between the stove and the table, humming softly, placing dishes like offerings in a silent temple. Anna scrolled through her phone at the dining table, perfectly manicured fingers tapping on the screen. Her face lit not by joy, but by the artificial blue of her notifications. "Dinner's ready," I said gently. She didn't look up. Then Rugov emerged from the study, rubbing his temples. "Let's eat quickly. I have a client call at 9. I nodded. "I've made all your favorites." "Thanks, Ma," he said absently, already pulling out a chair. Anna finally looked up and raised an eyebrow. "Did you make that ghee again?" "The one that smells like burnt toast." "It's homemade," I replied, keeping my voice calm. "Fresh from this morning." She wrinkled her nose. "My mom says real ghee shouldn't smell that strong." I gave her a soft smile and said nothing. I'd heard the comparisons before. Her mother, Maya Sinha, was her gold standard. Everything I did was held up against that bar and found lacking. She once told me Maya had a personal chef, a house filled with Italian marble and scented candles, and a closet full of silk saris that cost more than my monthly pension. Me, I had oil-stained aprons and feet that ached from standing too long. The hurtful comment. Dinner proceeded in silence. The only sound was the clink of cutlery and the quiet gurgle of the water filter in the corner. I served everyone before sitting down as I always did. Anna took a bite of the curry and paused. "Too salty." Rugov looked up from his plate. "It's fine, Anna. Let it go." She didn't. "Your mom always puts too much masala. I told her last week. Why is it so hard to get it right?" I looked at her, startled. "I'm sorry. I thought I measured it properly." "Maybe," she cut me off. "You know what? I'm tired of pretending everything's fine, just to be polite. My mom said I should speak my mind, and honestly I agree with her." Rugov sighed. "Anna, no." "Rugov," she said, her voice rising. "She needs to hear this." Then she turned to me, face hard. "You're not even half the woman my mother is." The words hit the table like thunder. I didn't gasp. I didn't flinch, but something inside me crumbled. Rugov froze, his fork midair, but he didn't say a word. I looked at him. Nothing. He just lowered his eyes and reached for the water jug. So that was it. All the years of wiping his tears when he was bullied. The nights I stayed awake through his fever. The silent fasts I kept so he'd pass his exams. The earrings I pawned so he could go to college abroad. All of it reduced to silence. Flashback. My past with my son. I pushed my chair back slowly, carefully. The legs scraped softly against the floor. I stood, letting the silence speak for me. Anna blinked, confused. Perhaps she expected me to argue, to cry, to apologize. But I did none of those things. I walked to my room, closed the door, and I packed a shawl, my handbag, a small diary, a faded photo of Rugov when he was 6, missing his 2 front teeth. I looked around the room. The walls were pale and bare. No frames, no memories, just years of sacrifice etched invisibly into the plaster. I picked up my keys, then I walked out. The front door closed softly behind me. Not a slam, just a quiet goodbye. Outside, the night was cool and still. The wind touched my cheeks like a mother comforting her child. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I was done being invisible in a house I had built with my life. No honking cars, no barking dogs, only the sound of my own footsteps echoing down the dimly lit street. I hadn't even taken my phone charger. I hadn't thought to. I didn't need it. I had no one to call. The air smelled of dust and hibiscus. Somewhere in the distance, an auto rickshaw rattled by. I stood under a flickering streetlight staring at the empty road, then flagged down a cab. "Where to?" the driver asked, glancing at me in the rear-view mirror. I thought for a moment. There was only one place I could go. "Gulmohar Colony," I said, "near the old post office." Radha opened the door in her nightgown and blinked at me in disbelief. "Mira." I tried to smile. I didn't know where else to go. Without a word, She pulled me into a hug. For the first time in a very long time, I let myself cry. My daughter-in-law's cold behavior. Radha and I had known each other since college. We had taken the same literature class in 1982, where she wrote poetry about rebellion, and I painted watercolors of rivers and rain clouds. She got married late, never had children, and lived in a small flat with books piled against the walls and mismatched mugs in the kitchen. "You can stay as long as you like," she said, handing me a cup of hot tea the next morning. "This is your home now." I stared at the rising steam and whispered, "What kind of mother walks away?" She took my hand, the kind who finally chooses herself. The days that followed were strange. I wasn't used to silence that wasn't full of judgment. This silence felt clean, empty, yes, but in a way that made room for something new. At first I slept a lot. Years of exhaustion finally caught up with me. Then I cleaned Radha's bookshelves, cooked meals for the two of us, and swept the balcony every morning. She offered to take me shopping, but I refused. "I don't need anything," I told her. But late at night, I would sit by the window with my diary and write things I never had the courage to say out loud. I wrote about the day Raghav was born, how I had gone into labor alone, because my husband was already gone by then, crushed beneath the weight of a failed business and depression. I wrote about the time I had only rupees 6,100 left, and Raghav needed textbooks. I sold my silver bangles, told him I had misplaced them. When I couldn't stay silent anymore, I wrote about all the little humiliations. The way Anna would correct my English in front of guests. The way Raghav laughed along when she joked about village values. The way I stopped singing in the kitchen because they once said my voice gave them headaches. I wrote and wrote and wrote until my hands hurt and my heart felt lighter. One evening, Radha came home with a sketchbook. "You used to." Hands trembled, but the pencil moved anyway. First, I drew a cracked teacup. Then, a woman with her face turned away from the mirror. Then, a house made of stitched-together skin. I didn't know what it all meant, but it felt good. The next morning, Radha said, "You know, people share art online now. You should try." I laughed. "I'm too old for that." She shrugged. "Hope doesn't care how old you are." We made an account together. A simple blog, a single-word name. Asha Hope. I uploaded one poem, then a sketch, then another. Each piece came from the places I had locked away. To my surprise, strangers started commenting. "This reminds me of my mother." I cried reading this. "Please don't stop sharing." I never used my name. I didn't want them to know I was a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and hands rough from decades of housework. I just wanted them to see the art, the truth of it. I wasn't trying to become anything. I just wanted to feel like someone again. Back in the house I had left, there was no word from Raghav. No calls, no messages, not even a question of where I had gone. But I no longer sat by the door waiting. Instead, I sat by the window and painted the colors of my sorrow, the shades of my healing. I painted a tree bending but not breaking. I painted a bird flying from a cage, her wings still learning the rhythm of freedom. I painted a mother with empty arms and eyes full of stars. Each post drew more attention. Each word touched someone else's quiet wound. My silence was no longer empty. It had become a voice. And for the first time in decades, I was listening to myself. Inside was a letter congratulating Asha for winning the Voice of Change award, a recognition for digital creators who inspire social movements. I reread the words twice. Then I looked up at Radha. "They want me to come to the ceremony to accept the award in person." Rad's eyes sparkled with quiet pride. "You will?" For weeks I thought about what to wear. I had no designer Saris, no stylist. But I did have the handloom sar Raghav had gifted me years ago, the one I wore on his wedding day. It was soft and gold with maroon borders. I dusted off my necklace, a simple chain with a pendant I had received as a wedding gift. That day, as I dressed, I caught my reflection in the mirror. There was a woman looking back at me, not the invisible, broken version I had been, but someone who had survived and thrived. The gala was held in a glittering ballroom filled with faces painted in makeup and ambition. The chandeliers sparkled like stars. I stepped inside quietly, clutching my purse, my heart pounding. Then in the crowd, I saw them and Anna perfectly coiffed and radiant. Her mother Maya wearing diamonds and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. And Rugov, he hadn't looked at me once since that night months ago, but now his eyes searched mine wide with disbelief. When the host called my pen name, the room fell silent. A hush spread as I walked to the stage. The spotlight was warm, but not harsh. I held the microphone with steady hands. "Thank you," I began, voice calm but strong. For years I lived in the shadow of other expectations. I was told I wasn't enough. Not the right kind of mother, wife, or woman. I paused and looked out at the crowd at them. But I found strength in silence and courage in creativity. And I realized that my worth is not measured by comparisons or criticisms, but by the love and resilience that live inside me. A wave of applause swept the room, and Anna's mouth twitched. Rugov's face was pale. "I dedicate this award," I continued, "to every woman who has been told she is less than. You are not less. You are more. You are whole, and you are worthy." I stepped down from the stage. The room erupted in cheers. Later at the after-party, a reporter asked if I would reveal my identity. I smiled. My story is not just mine. It belongs to anyone who has ever felt invisible. And tonight I am finally seen. As I walked out into the cool night, I spotted Rugov waiting by the door. His voice was barely a whisper. "Ma, I'm sorry." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said softly, "I don't need your apology. I needed your respect, and I have found it in myself." He nodded, tears in his eyes. I turned and walked away. For the first time, I was truly free.